All right, here at Trinity, for those of you that might be guests with us, watching online for the first time, before we get into the sermon, we have what's called a Worldview segment. And let me explain why we do a Worldview segment. Picture this with me in your imagination. I believe the church should be like a military command center. In a military command center, it's the central hub for planning, coordinating, and directing and monitoring spiritual, in our case, spiritual operations, all right? So I believe the church should be the nerve center of a community, of a nation, where information is gathered, analyzed, and then used to make critical decisions. Hence, 1 Chronicles 12:32 in the Old Testament, it says the sons of Issachar had wisdom regarding the times in which they lived, and they knew what they should do. So I believe Christians should be able to discern the times in which they live. We need to discern the moral, cultural, social, political, economic issues of our day, of our time, for the purpose of being informed so we can know how to pray, so that we can each be empowered to act. And so here at Trinity, we're not simply trying to grow a church, but grow the people that are in the church. And we believe the Lord has given his church in America, the true church in America, not the backslidden church, but the true church in America, a prophetic 4-year window of opportunity, thank you, of which during this period of time, this Kairos moment, the church, we as members of the body of Christ, we can do our part. We can do our part to rebuild the spiritual foundations that have been uprooted and torn up over the past 10 plus years. How do we do that? Well, by praying like never before, serving like never before, and giving like never before. So I want this Worldview segment to be a call to revival. So in the book of James, James tells us, and he says this, how a tiny spark can ignite a great blaze. And we are seeing this tragically being played out in Los Angeles. Through these horrific fires, homes destroyed, livelihoods wiped out, and lives have been lost. So our prayers must be with those brave firefighters, thank God for them, for the first responders, and for those who have lost loved ones, for those who right now are grieving the unimaginable sorrow that's in their heart by what they have witnessed and experienced. This is the most costly fires in the history of the United States of America, upwards to $150 billion in damages. As of today, 14 lives have been lost. It's absolutely catastrophic, but it's a reminder to all of us. It is a stark reminder of the perilous impact of radical, progressive, woke policies on the welfare and the sustainability of human civilization. Can you imagine that the governor of California, prior to these fires, he cut $100 million from the fire prevention budget? The Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass, cut the fire department funding by nearly $20 million and then funded LGBTQ and DEI causes. The fire hydrants were empty, the reservoirs were empty, power was cut off to the water pumping stations, the Pacific Palisades community. Imagine the magnitude. Living in Lubbock here in West Texas, we cannot fathom this. But that community alone, where it pretty much started, it's 25 square miles, 24,000 residents. It's as large as the Disney World Resort in Florida, which is 25 square miles. Manhattan, New York, Manhattan is about 23 square miles, meaning that the fire's destruction exceeds the total size of Manhattan Island. If you want to compare it to football fields, it's about 12,800 football fields being completely destroyed, or the entire city of Plainview times 2 being destroyed. So these devastating fires in LA, they really are a sobering wake-up call. They are a spiritual metaphor of the devastation that America has faced and is facing. The spiritual flames that are consuming our homes, destroying our livelihoods, and leaving behind a scarred landscape in their wake. I'm talking about the spiritual fires that have been sparked in our nation really for over a generation. That's reaping havoc on our families, on our lives, on our communities, on our nation. Imagine just a single backyard spark can incinerate miles of land. And so too can unchecked sin as it spirals into destruction. Wildfires, they tear through neighborhoods, leaving families displaced, almost 200,000 people displaced from these fires. Imagine families, spiritually speaking, in our nation that have been displaced. the continued cycle of divorce and how the divorce rates are climbing, children that are left without guidance, and cycles of dysfunction and poverty perpetuate themselves generation after generation. These flames are no less as real and destructive as the ones that are burning in LA, destroying homes not from without, but from within. So, thank God for firefighters. You know, firefighters in their training, they create fire breaks, areas that are cleared so that there's not fuel to stop the fire from spreading. Well, spiritually, we need to all be spiritual firefighters. We need to create spiritual fire breaks in our lives, in our souls, in our families, in our churches, in our communities, so that we can stop or contain the fire that's destroying our nation, the out-of-control addiction, the out-of-control pornography, the out-of-control sin that is wreaking havoc on our nation. And so this is a call for revival. And here's the hope. God said through the prophet Joel in Joel 2:25, I can restore to you the years that the swarming locust has eaten. God tells us he can bring beauty from ashes. That from devastation, God can bring about such a restoration that would boggle the average mind and imagination. Maybe you have experienced some hardship and sorrow and devastation in your life in 2024. Well, this is a new year. And if you can turn to God and trust him, he is in the restoration business. And what the devil meant to stop you, to ruin you, to destroy you, God could use for his glory and for your good. I believe that.